It's their problem. And if they make me jump through hoops, they can't get pissed off when I set the hoop on fire. Welcome, my friends, to one of the short rolling rambles. This is going to be brief. Let me talk about PCI DSS compliance. That is Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards. If you've ever heard of PCI compliance, you probably run a small business and probably take credit cards. One of the things back in the day that I distinctly remember whenever I moved over to Square and people still tried to sell me traditional credit card services, merchant services, was that they would claim Square isn't PCI compliant. Well, first of all, they did not take into account the fact that I don't care about PCI compliance. That's not my problem. That's your problem. PCI compliance, the basic idea is that you have computer systems, and if they're not secure, then your credit card terminal could be hacked and stored credit card information, which shouldn't exist, by the way. Credit card terminals shouldn't be storing credit card information, but I digress. Somehow, hackers will be able to get access to private credit card data if they can break into your network. And while there may be a kernel of truth to that, the point is, you shouldn't have credit card machines that have that problem in the first place, idiots. If I have a credit card machine hooked up to Ethernet, and I have it reaching out to your servers to get credit card authorization, where's the encryption? Why is it not firewalling itself off from everything else on the network? Why are you leaving it wide open? That shouldn't be my problem. That should be your problem. So you'd think. But whenever back in the day, before I had Square, I had First Data, I think it was. I had merchant services through, I think, First Data. Traditional credit card terminal with a print receipt, you know, all that stuff. Anyway, one of the things about First Data is that they would perform these scans of my public IP address to determine whether or not I was PCI compliant. Basically, they would scan and see if I had potential vulnerabilities, like if I had an outdated version of Apache, which I often did. But I wasn't storing credit card data on that server, so it didn't matter. If my stupid little toy web server got hacked, I wouldn't have cared. It didn't have any credit card data, there was no risk, and I'm not a very viable target. But these scumbags would still insist that, I had to give them my public IP and they had to run scans, blah, 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 blah. And I would get these reports that I wasn't in compliance and that I had to fix these issues and rerun the scan, or they'd yank my merchant services. So because I had no choice but to go through with this stupid thing where they would scan my system, I would have to do things like recompile Apache because I used a Linux from scratch sort of deal. It's actually called Crux, but I'd have to rebuild Apache, not because there was anything wrong with it, but because they didn't like it. After a while, I honestly got pretty tired of rebuilding Apache, and it pissed me off. So eventually what I started doing is looking and finding where they had run these scans, and they had probed my server. I determined what IP addresses and ranges this company was using to scan my systems. And I went to my Linux router, I fired up a command prompt or a terminal or whatever, and I used a few IP tables commands to block all of their IP ranges from ever being able to communicate with my router. I firewalled off the PCI DSS compliance people. The next status email I got, all issues resolved. You are secure. Why? Because my systems pretended like their systems didn't even exist, didn't give them the time of day, there was nothing for them to do. Oh, make no mistake, you could still reach my Apache instance publicly. All my stuff was still where I had it set up. It was still wide open the ways I wanted it to be. But I made it so they couldn't see it. Because it's not my problem. It's their problem. And if they make me jump through hoops, they can't get pissed off when I set the hoop on fire. Or take a picture of the hoop and put that up in front of their camera. It's exactly what I did in metaphorical terms. So yeah, screw you, payment card industry. Why do I have to comply with anything? Your terminal shouldn't suck. And that's the thing about Square. It uses my phone, encrypts everything in transit, doesn't store anything on the phone. At worst, I have to key in a card number, and that doesn't get stored on the phone either. So there's no problem. Ah! PCI compliance is stupid, and I don't have to deal with it anymore. But when I did, I found the easiest solution was just to block them from being able to scan in the first place. Once you do that, funny how that doesn't work anymore. It wouldn't surprise me if they've gotten more sophisticated with that crap now. And the thing that triggered this video is I read something, I think, about some people getting fined for not being in compliance. I can tell you for a fact, if First Data had ever fined me for not being in compliance, the first thing I would have done is stop taking credit cards, and they could shove it right up their buttholes. Anyway, that's about it. I thought that you would find it very amusing. I continue to find it amusing to this day, but it's not something I think about very often, and it happened to come into my, field of reference today. Anyway, that's how I beat the stupid security scanners. Probably wouldn't work today, but it sure did work back then, and I'm still smug about it 14 years later. Like, comment, subscribe, you know the drill. Thanks for watching.